I like to think of faith as being still. You know, I'm in high school and I'm learning philosophy as one of my subjects, right? And there's this interesting concept in ancient Greek philosophy about movement, the problem of movement and the problem of things that are changing. So the whole, the entirety of Greek philosophy posed this problem and wanted to solve this problem, trying to explain why things are always moving and why things are always changing, right? We're talking about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle for the most part. And I find this so interesting because somehow we can relate this to our faith in Jesus. Now, I like to think of faith, right? I like to imagine faith as being still in contrast with movement. Now, what do I mean by this? If we think about it, right, there are so many verses in the Bible that tell us, right, give us this image of being still. I mean, the most famous verse that proves this case is, "Be still and know that I am God." But in general, right, I think that faith and belief in God has to be still. It has to be firm, deeply rooted in truth. And this is so beautiful because if you think about it, when we lack faith, when we go through bad moments, right, we feel as if our faith was being shaken. We feel as if we're never stable and we're always moving back and forth, left and right, without any point of reference. And so thinking about faith as being still is so beautiful, because being still means being deeply rooted in one place, and that place is God's truth. Faith should not be based on variable and continuously changing feelings. It must be based on it necessarily must be based on something firm, which is God's truth. And so, you know, looking back at what I was saying about philosophy, it's truly beautiful to think about faith as being still, as something that doesn't change, that doesn't move, and that is always stable, right? And so faith, I believe, is that. Perhaps faith can be shaken, and that is the moment where we need God the most. And so movement and you know, being still is such a beautiful juxtaposition, such a beautiful you know, they present two opposing ideas. So faith, I believe, is being still by all of the problems, all of the thoughts in your mind that are trying to move you away from God. But at the end of the day, as Christians, we are called to be still, to not be shaken by anything. And we must remember that our God is a big God, and His infinite goodness, infinite love, and infinite dimensions are enough for us to be still in His presence, not be shaken by anything, not be, you know, the whole concept of faith as being still is one of the central concepts, I think. It's such a beautiful depiction of faith, right? And if you think about it, trust, one of the definitions of faith, which is trust, implies trust in something that is stable, in something that doesn't change, right? Truth must be something stable, must be something rooted and that doesn't change. And I believe that there are so many philosophies, so many worldviews that present other cases. They present something that is variable, that is dependent on man, like relativism, for example. Instead, as humans, we are called to dwell in the very presence of God, who is someone who never changes, always stable, and He calls us to be still. I mean, why do we have to move away from God, pursuing idols, pursuing temptation, pursuing sin, when we have the biggest, being and most loving and most, good being, the best being of all, who is God? And so when our faith is being shaken, let's remember how Jesus is the only person on earth, only person ever in the history of mankind who promises stability, who promises being firm. And it is hard sometimes, because part of enduring trials and temptations and, suffering is to be shaken. We sometimes feel shaken, we feel like we cannot hang on to something, but then there's God. There's God who promises us, that if we abide in Him, if we base our truth in His truth, in the scriptures, and in His goodness, we have the chance to be still. We have the chance to being still. We have the chance of our faith not being shaken about anything. So this was just a quick thought. And I really like and I enjoy thinking about faith as something who is opposite of movement, of something that is opposite of movement, something that is firm and still.